I've called you my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion.
Hello, my name is Swami Devaki, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about theater at Ananda, spiritual theater, however you'd like to look at it. I started doing theater when I was quite young, about 7 or 8. I did a lot of the silly garage theater that children do, and grew up just with kind of an interest in it and a desire to do it. It didn't really matter if I was going to go on to become a great famous actress. It was more that I just enjoyed doing it. And as I grew up, I eventually did go into doing theater. I got a degree in it and went on and did some work outside of college, and then decided to move to Ananda. And at that point, I thought I was done with theater, and I thought I would just sell my makeup kit, and that was a sign that I was truly done. But of course, our karma follows us wherever we go, and clearly over the past over 40 years, my karma, my path to the divine has been through theater. So I, throughout the years at Ananda Village, have done a variety of things that one could classify as theater. I've acted, I've directed, mostly directed, but I've done a lot of acting as well. And some of the things that we've done, in a spiritual community, it's not unusual, especially because spirituality and theater are really very closely tied when you think back historically, and how a lot of the pageant plays and how a lot of theater came out of a lot of spiritual rituals. It's not uncommon, really, for us to be doing something like this, but in a different way. And so in the early stages of Ananda, the monks and the nuns would get together and they would do things mostly for entertainment purposes, but also to go deeper into the teachings, and just to have fun, which was a basic reason for doing it. And as it evolved, we would do things for Halloween. We had a lot of children at that time at the village, and we would do things for Halloween, like plays, and they eventually evolved into some pretty sophisticated forms of entertainment. Many people would turn their homes in the community into theme homes, and a lot of storybook characters would evolve. We have a pretty elaborate costume shop at Ananda Village, run by a woman named Mary Weber, who just over the years has built this extraordinary costume shop. And a lot of people have been involved in the things that I've done over the years. And it has ranged everything from something at Halloween to P.G. Wodehouse, which Swami Kriyananda was very instrumental in bringing into our community. And I've done things in India, I've done things at our bookstores. We did a particular Halloween play one year at East West Bookshop in Seattle. I did it for Halloween, and it was mostly because I wanted to offer something that was uplifting to the greater community and to our own community. And so we created little vignettes. I kind of thought of them as like a wax museum where we would take actors and take characters from perhaps the Bhagavad Gita or from the Mahabharata, and I recreated one scene which was done with Hanuman and Sita and Ram, and people would come in, they'd see the actors posed like they were wax figures, and I would tell the story behind them, and then we would move into another room, and we would do something perhaps a little more audio-visual, where I told the story of the squirrel and how he got his stripes. And then we moved into another room where you saw Kali and Shiva. And Kali was posed with her foot on top of Shiva. and I told that story. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. It was a kind of thinking outside of the box, which you can certainly do with spiritual theater. And it moved and progressed until eventually I started doing Swami Kriyananda's plays. Swami, many of you may or may not know, was a playwright when he started out as a young man. And he wrote a play called The Jewel and the Lotus, which I've directed, and directed it in India as well, and also the Peace Treaty. And the Peace Treaty, no small effort, was or is a 3-act play with 22 actors. And the way that came about, if you stop and think about really what the purpose of spiritual theater is, there are a lot of different attitudes or thoughts that come about. And one of them is an attitude of service. It is an avenue of service for many different people. They don't necessarily have to be talented. You don't necessarily have to have aspired to be a great actor. It's still an attitude of service that you can bring to it. The thought is that it is indeed a ministry. I know that there are a lot of people out in the world, apart from Ananda, who do things that, and they consider it a ministry because there is a higher message that's usually involved with it. And we take it one step further at Ananda, and I can get into that a little bit further, which is that we work with vibration. So regarding the Peace Treaty, that came about because I was, the community, Ananda community, had been going through a rather difficult time. We were kind of fragmented at that time, and there was a court case that we had been dealing with, and there were, because there were 22 actors, I had to give a lot of thought to who I was going to put into it, and not many people at Ananda at that time, especially, as you can imagine, were actors. And so I sat down with a woman named Roma Blake because I wanted to participate in some way during this time, and I didn't know how to do it. And I thought, well, I could probably do the Peace Treaty. I could direct that. And consequently, it grew into something that was performed year after year for about 13 or 14 years. It was, again, a play that Swami Kriyananda had written, and he absolutely loved it. And so I sat down with a woman named Roma Blake, and we sat at the kitchen table and looked at our phone list and decided who could possibly play a particular role. And who was also at that time someone that revered Swami Kriyananda as their teacher. And so I put together this group of people, and they were all very willing, and again, looking for a way to serve, looking for a way to contribute at that time, to help with Swami, to help those that were involved, and also to bring a unification to our community. And that's one thing that theater is amazing for, is that it is very unifying. And so all of these people came together, and we rehearsed, started in January and performed in June. We did that for several years in a row. Of course, many different people came in and out of the production. Some people had to leave for various reasons. And I was doing a lot of training people how to act, and rehearsing and trying to pull it together on many different levels. So the Peace Treaty became, I would say, a huge milestone in terms of theater at Ananda. And again, it proved to be extremely unifying for the community, and just a delight to perform. I can remember many, many times sitting down with my friends and directing them and teaching them how to act, and we could have an awful lot of fun with it. So another aspect of the theater is it can indeed be unifying, but it's also a wonderful way to practice the art of living. And through that, you learn how to be present, how to be in the moment. You have to feel things, especially if you're an actor on stage or if you're working technically. You have to be present. You have to be ready for anything that happens. And consequently, you can transfer that into your own life, learning how to stay present. And the more we can stay in the moment, the more we are connected to the divine. And there's nothing that can put you more in the moment than being on stage in front of a lot of people and having to recite lines and work with other actors. So that's another aspect of it. Also, I've witnessed throughout the years many people who have participated in the plays have really gained in self-esteem. There's something about being able to stand up there and doing something that maybe you thought you never could do. It's been very inspiring to watch people to work towards doing their very best with something that it might not be in their comfort zone at all. And so these are just a few things to keep in mind in terms of thinking why you might like to do something for Ananda with theater. I can go on, I can talk technically about it, but I don't think I'll do that at this point. I'll make a few more points about theater, which is that the most important thing, I think, when you're doing spiritual theater is the level of joy that you need to bring to it. Because that's what so many people are craving. I have so many people come to me and say, oh, just do a class that's fun. They just want to have fun. And I will say so many times when I've directed these plays, that's been the core of what we've been doing. Now, of course, if you start to take it too seriously, then you can lose that sense of fun. And there can be a lot of stress to it. I know that it's different from other mediums. Really, to do theater, all you need is an actor and someone to watch, an audience. But you tend to add these other elements, which is sound and lighting and costumes and sets. And it gets more complicated. It gets more complicated for the actors who have to really learn how to focus, have to memorize lines, learn how to follow the lines, learn how to work in an ensemble with people that they're working with. So it's a little bit more complicated. It takes a lot of energy. And sometimes people that are not professionals don't want to put that much energy into it. And so you have to work to accommodate. Especially if you're making this your ministry, you have to accommodate a lot of different personalities, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different modes of expression. And especially if you're wanting to make it something that is meaningful for those that are participating. And if you are participating, the key thing to remember is don't think about what you're getting. Think about what you're giving. And that takes a lot of the stress off of it because it takes a lot of the focus off of yourself. I know a lot of people think that when people get on stage that they kind of attach this stigma of ego to them and that they like that they're hams. But when you watch someone who really knows what they're doing with acting or theater, their egos are out of the way, and they become pure channels for the divine to be moving through them. And when you do that, then you are truly living in the present moment. So that's a good way to learn these lessons in a very safe environment. How to field your life, how to field the unpredictability of the stage. Because I've been through a few interesting situations, and they've taught me a lot. And they do teach you a lot about humility and a lot about who's in charge. And the reality is that God is always in charge. Whether you're directing, you may as well consider yourself the assistant director, because you will be learning another aspect of theater, which is attunement. And the best way, especially for devotees, is to attune through Swami Kriyananda and through Master. And so when you think about the particular things that you want to perform or put on stage, give a great deal of thought to it, because when we eat, we don't want to put junk food in our bodies. I mean, there are times when, of course, we will, but it's the same with the arts. You don't want to put junk into your mind, into your consciousness. And so, as devotees, participating or doing something that Swami Kriyananda has written, there is a particular vibration to what they've done, and it can be extremely elevating. I remember one time I had an office, and I had photos of the peace treaty in my office, and I kind of had them just all around me. And I would walk into that office, and I was just amazed at the vibration that was emanating from those pictures. And it was the actors who were receptive to Swami Kriyananda and to Master through Swami. So the material that you choose is very important. And I'd mentioned P.G. Wodehouse because Swami Kriyananda introduced P.G. Wodehouse to us. I personally was not a big fan of P.G. Wodehouse. I know he's a little hard for some people. I was not a big fan when I was reading him, but when I performed him, I began to see his absurdity and his humor and where it was coming from and how he had you laughing at everybody and anything. And I'm one who enjoys the absurd. So P.G. Wodehouse has become definitely on one of the tops of my list. So just keep that in mind. When you choose something, make sure it's uplifting, make sure that it takes people into a space, doesn't bring their energy down, it brings their energy up. And it's complicated sometimes because we work with, you have life, you have conflict in life. And so it's a real art, learning how to act in a way that is vibrationally pure. There are a few actors I know that I have watched over the years. One of them, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think it's Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, or Crouching Tiger, I don't know. But anyway, he was in that particular movie, and he played the teacher, and he is an amazing actor. He's a Buddhist, and when I watch him, I haven't seen all that he's done, but there are some things that I've seen, and his vibration, when you get behind what's going on there, he actually does quite a few very, very violent movies. And for him to still maintain his consciousness during these movies is pretty impressive, not only while he's performing, but aside from that. And that is, in my mind, quite a master. Another one, if you look at someone like Helen Hayes, who was considered, I think, the first woman of the theater in America, and she has her own particular brand of spirituality, but she tried to stay true to it. The one thing that you will notice is that actors who do try to operate on a spiritual level while they're performing, their performances become very subtle, and sometimes almost too subtle, and too subtle for a worldly audience. So consider your vibration, consider what you're getting out of the role, not only financially, if you're actually out there working professionally, but spiritually. Really give that some thought before you just jump into doing anything and everything. Well, I had many experiences with Swami Kriyananda, and honestly, life is like you take a shovel and you keep digging. It's like Master hands you a shovel and you just dig like this. And your head is down, and you don't realize until maybe you get to my age, you look back and you think, wow, what have I done with my life? And then you stop and start to reflect on it, and you realize you really have had a lot more experiences than you ever thought. And there was a lot of subtle things that happened with Swami Kriyananda for me. And it's difficult for me to just rattle them off, because I start to think of one and then another one kind of follows along. But one in particular, I will say, is when I was directing the peace treaty, I would direct this particular scene, and the audience would get up and they would leave. Now, mind you, I was engaged on many levels with the peace treaty. I was working a full-time job, as well as teaching people how to act. I was more engaged in the minutiae, the particulars, rather than, in some ways, I missed the overall picture. But there was one spot where the audience would get up and have an intermission. And I hadn't written that in. I hadn't directed it that way. It wasn't written in the script that way. And I could never understand why. Why in this particular spot it seemed like people needed to have an intermission. And I mentioned it to Swami a couple of times, and finally he stopped. And I said, Swami, I think that the intermission should be here. And he stopped, and he gave it a lot of really deep thought for a moment, and he said, no. He said, no, this is where the intermission should be. And so I went back, and I really tried to attune to him to understand. And he was right. And once I understood that rhythm, the intermission was absolutely in the right place. So that's just one experience that I had, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about not changing anything that Master or Swami writes. Because the impulse, and I've done this, the impulse is to go in and to make it better. When I first started directing the peace treaty, it was like, oh, okay, I will add this, I'll do that, I'll change this here. Instead of really going deep and understanding the true intention of the writer. And so I would caution you, if you're going to rewrite, if you feel like you want to make something better because you phrase it a certain way, I would caution you not to, because when you're working with someone of their caliber, there's usually a deep channeling that's going on. And I have edited some things only for practical reasons, because maybe something was a little longer than I could travel with or could perform at a certain time. But that's the only reason. It was never because of with the intention of making it better. So I would certainly caution you about doing something like that. Other things, other times that I had with Swami was, I did other things beside his plays. And the other thing that I would do is I would stage manage and kind of direct several talks that he had. And it's not as if he and I communicated a lot. Most of my communication had to come on very subtle levels. And I remember I would have like a 50-person choir that would be seated on risers behind him when he was speaking. And he would be very unpredictable, I wouldn't know when he wanted the choir to perform. I would just have to tune in and listen to his talk and be ready and have them ready at any moment to stand up and do their parts. So it always, his and my relationship was always one of just a deep, deep attunement to him. And, there are other experiences that I had. One was when Swami, initially, in the very beginning, when we were casting for some parts in the peace treaty, and we had a big casting session, and a lot of people came, and it was a very interesting experience, because Swami, I have the video, I was able to look back and see that Swami was very, I won't say reserved, he wasn't reserved, but there was nothing that was tense about him or aggravated, and none of that, or judgmental, none of that. But that was an interesting process, because a lot of people walked out of there knowing that that was not what they were supposed to be doing with their lives. And his impact was incredibly powerful for so many different people. There were people that were hiding in the kitchen. They were so afraid to come out and be in front of him like that. But the tension in the room was strong, because people were, they just didn't know. They didn't know. He could say something, and he didn't say it, like I said, with any malice or any force even. He would just say it, and it would have such an impact on people individually that only they really could come in touch with. So that was a pretty amazing experience to watch him do that. And for myself, I learned a lot about detachment and detaching myself from those that I especially wanted to be in a particular role, or wanted to participate on a certain level, or that I considered a good friend or whatever. I was also being worked over at that time. Any other thoughts?
Do you want to talk about the music that's in the play?
The music that's in the play. Well, as I'd mentioned, Swami and Master and the teachings, they really have, there's a wealth of information if you just open your mind to it. And one thing that Swami Kriyananda has given us is music. And the Peace Treaty especially has two very, very beautiful songs. But above and beyond that, if you look at or listen to Swami's music, you'll hear a theme, and you can take a complete play out of some of those themes. So just expand your mind, stay open, and pray. Ask for guidance, ask for help. If this is something that you want to pursue, it's a wonderful service. It's a wonderful way to bring joy to a lot of people, to bring laughter if you have an inclination in that direction. I strongly encourage you to do so, fearlessly. And yes, it's a commitment. It takes a lot of energy, but it also overlaps with so many aspects of community, which are, of course, the music, Swami's music, the creativity of set design and costumes, the spirituality of it. I mean, we've done so many different Christmas pageants, and it's a very, very, it's a very unique, it's a very divine way to serve, and I feel very blessed to have been able to do it. Hi, my name is Swami Devaki, and I'm going to talk just briefly about drama and music, especially Ananda music. Well, definitely just Ananda music, and Swami Kriyananda's music more specifically. Before I do, just to let you know, my background is in theater, and I've directed plays for Swami for many, many years, one of them being the Peace Treaty. And there were some songs in the peace treaty, but before I get into the songs, I'm just going to describe a little bit about the play, which is, it is a play in 3 acts with 22 characters. And it's about 5 clans that live on an isolated island. And there are 4 creative clans. There's music and dance and poetry and humor. And then another clan, which is philosophy. And Swami has placed these clans on a deserted island, and essentially it's symbolic of bias and prejudice in the world. And there are 2 clans that get into a fight, and one clan, it's called the Poetry Clan, declares war on the Music Clan. And all the other clans rally around this particular clan to help them, and they defeat the Poetry Clan. And so there's 4 songs in this play, and 2 of them are about relationships. And it's about 2 lovers who work from opposing clans, which is the music and the Poetry Clan. And they're in love with each other, and they are kind of the Romeo and Juliet of the play. And they are, they're kept apart, and Oriel, who is from the music clan, sings a song to her lover, and he is from the Poetry Clan. And so that's one song, and another song she also sings is called 2 Souls. But the first song is called Dearest When I Think of Thee. And when Swamiji wrote that song, even though I've never verbally confirmed it with him, I believe that what he's talking about is something much more divine, much higher than human love. And if you listen to the lyrics, I think you can understand. He says, dearest, when I think of thee, heaven opens and I see shafts of light upon the earth. All then seems of noble birth. Kindness then appears divine. Human error then benign. Goodness rules the universe. Men a higher love rehearse. So I think he's talking about divine love. I think he's talking about the divine romance, even though he sees it in human form and he's expressing it in human form. I think ultimately he's singing to God in that particular song. And another song that he did was 2 Souls. And that song is about 2 souls who, on the astral plane, made a decision to come down to this earth plane. They recognized each other, and they recognized that they had a work to do, a great work to do. And so then, again, I think it's all intertwined with the divine romance and much more elevated form of relationship than what we may think of naturally or in a worldly sense. And when you work with Swami's music, and he has a tremendous amount of music that he has written personally as the director and someone who has focused mostly on a theatrical perspective, which means I included costumes and sets and actors that had to memorize lines, as well as music. You still need to maintain a sense of integrity with the music. There are songs that he has written that I know may seem a little out of character, like Dracula, and another one is it's the non-blues. Even though he's kind of a little offbeat with those 2 songs, and there's some others that he's done as well, you still have to maintain a sense of integrity, and you have to come at it from a perspective of being very centered and calm when you perform it, and not degrade the integrity of the songs. And I personally, as a director, have done a lot of music over the years. I've been with Ananda over 40 years, and I have been singing in the choir since day one. What magnetized me to Ananda Village, of course, was the music. And I can remember before I even moved to Ananda Village, sitting at home and listening to the music over and over and over again. Many of the chants I would listen to. One particular song, of course, that really resonated with me was the song Cloisters. And Swami has always said, if you want to know me, get involved with my music. And so I've always considered that a very special extension of what I do as a director or as an actor, because there is a sense of elevation that comes from his music, even though even in his plays, Swami is still coming from a very high space when he writes, and anything that he puts together is coming from a vibrational perspective. But adding the music to it, because if the music you get into your heart, you get totally into your heart. And I think that's extremely important, especially with his play, which has so much philosophy in it, that it's important to come at it from the perspective of inspiration and a heart perspective. So we're going to sing a couple of songs for you, just also to mention that Swami has done Shakespeare. He's taken some of Shakespeare's sonnets and put them to music. But as I had mentioned earlier, Swamiji not only took Shakespeare and put it to music, but if you look and listen to his music, you realize you can write scripts from his music, you can use his music in so many different aspects of your creative pursuits. So now I think we'll sing a couple of songs for you. Two souls were conceived at night, ere stars in the sky gave light, ere planets were born, ere hearts could know scorn. Together they danced in God's sight. Up pathways of radiance they flew. Before them bright stars they strew. Deep seas and vast plains, men's joys and men's pains, all these in perfection they knew. Their love brought them down from the sky to live here on earth in disguise. They seem mortal now, yet remembering their vow, they ever maintain their soul ties.
Who is Sylvia? What is she? That all our swains commend her. Holy, fair, and wise is she. The heaven such grace did lend her, that she might admired be, that she might admired be. Is she kind as she is fair? For beauty lives with kindness. To her eyes love doth repair, to help him of his blindness. And being helped inhabits there, and being helped inhabits there. Then to Sylvia let us sing, that Sylvia is excelling. She excels each mortal thing. Upon the dull earth dwelling, to her let us garlands bring, to her let us garlands bring, to her let us garlands bring, to her let us garlands bring.